The board meeting of the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians. This meeting is being held Thursday, May 16th, 2019, at the Department of Consumer Affairs, 1625 North Market Boulevard, Hearing Room South, Room 102, Sacramento, California. I would like to call this meeting to order. We're going to start with roll call. My name is Tammy Mendoza. I'm the current board president, and we'll start with board members on my right.
Cheryl Turner, public member. Good morning.
Good morning, Alita Carpenter, public member.
Good morning, Bernice Basti-Martinez, Vice President of the Board and public member.
Paula Amazola, public member.
Good morning, John Deerking, public member.
Good morning, Paul Sellers, Psychiatric Technician member.
Good morning, Dr. Carol Mountain, member.
Thank you. And Administrative Law Judge, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Good morning. My name is Danette Brown. I'm an administrative law judge here to conduct the petition hearings this morning.
Thank you. And we'll move on to agenda item 2, Pledge of Allegiance. If I could ask Paul Sellers, our veteran for board member, to lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. During the meeting today, public comment is welcome on any agenda item as the item is taken up by the board. Under the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, the board may not take any action on issues raised by the public comment that are not on the agenda, other than to decide whether to schedule that issue for a future meeting. If any person wishes to address the board, please come forward to the podium, give your name and the name of the organization you represent, so that the board will have a record of all those who appear. Please note that a person wishing to provide general comment is not required to identify himself or herself when making public comment. However, it is appreciated. To allow the board sufficient time to conduct its scheduled business, the board may limit the time given to each person. Please do not repeat statements or views of previous speaker. It is sufficient to state that you agree. Written statements should not be summarized, or should be summarized and submitted to the board. They should not be read. If I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item, it is not because I intend to limit comment, so please raise your hand and I will recognize you. The board appreciates your cooperation and assistance in meeting its legal mandate. Any public comment? Seeing none, I will now turn the meeting over to the administrative law judge to begin the hearings.
Thank you. We are here this morning before the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians to review petitions. I believe there are 7 of them this morning, petitions for reinstatement. Again, my name is Danette Brown, and I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I have been assigned to hear these matters. Would the members of the board kindly introduce themselves, starting from my left, since we have to establish a quorum?
Dr. Carol Mountain.
Paul Sellers.
John Deerking, public member.
Paula Amazola, public member.
Bernice Basti-Martinez, Board Vice President, public member.
Tammy Mendoza, LVN member, current board president.
Alita Carpenter, public member.
Cheryl Turner, public member.
And Madam President, is a quorum of the board members present?
Yes, there is a quorum of the board members.
Okay, so a quorum has been established. So we'll move on to our first petition. The first petition being Alan J. Garcia, and he is present with his attorney. And I'll ask you to identify yourselves for the record as we move on. I did want to say that before the hearings, I did explain ever so casually the procedures in this matter to the petitioners who are seated over here to my right. And again, the petitions that the board is concerned with hearing about are rehabilitation. And that is really what we are here to get the information from you, from the petitioners. So, and I also explained that the Deputy Attorney General, Ms. Caitlin Doherty, and she will also identify herself for the record, will proceed to provide an orientation in this matter. And after that, the petitioner will have the right to make their presentation. You'll do so under oath, and I will put you under oath. And kindly explain why you believe your probation or or you should be, actually, these are all reinstatements, so not probations, but why you should be reinstated. You may call witnesses to testify on your behalf, and you or any witnesses will be subject to questioning by both the board members and the Deputy Attorney General. And again, the board is particularly concerned with rehabilitation and whether you may have engaged all of the activities that you've engaged in since your license was revoked. You're reminded that the board has had the benefit of reading your petition package, and you don't have to repeat anything in that package. And after all of the hearings, the board will go into closed session, and they're going to deliberate. You won't receive a decision today, but you will receive it at some point in the future in the mail. All right? So any questions, sir? Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is put you under oath, so if you could kindly raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, and I think your microphone may be turned off. Okay. Can you speak in there?
I do.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Can the parties identify themselves for the record, please? Starting with my left, with the Attorney General's office.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Oh, I think
And board.
is your microphone on or off? Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
Good morning, Your Honor and board members. My name is Caitlin Doherty, Deputy Attorney General. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 2878.7 and Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the board in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the board has adequate information from which to make a decision.
Thank you, ma'am. And you, sir, are?
Good morning, Your Honor and honorable board members. Kevin Cawley, appearing on behalf of petitioner Alan J. Garcia, who is present before the board and seated to my left.
Is it Mr. Cawley?
Cawley, yes, C-A-U-L-E-Y.
Okay. Good morning to you, Mr. Cawley. And, sir, you are?
Good morning, Your Honor, and to the board. I am Alan J. Garcia, and I am the petitioner for reinstatement.
Thank you, sir. And I just want to identify for the record that this is OAH case number 2019-041-133. Okay, Madam Deputy Attorney General, would you like to proceed first, or you want the petitioner to go ahead and proceed with his testimony?
We would like to proceed first.
Okay.
I would first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence our exhibit binder. The board members and the petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of this exhibit binder. What's been pre-marked as Exhibit A is the petition for reinstatement with accompanying documents. Those accompanying documents generally consist of the final decision and order in case number VN 2003-868, the Board of Registered Nursing decision and order in case number 2008-108, petitioner's resume, continuing education hours completed between May 18th, 2016 to January 27th, 2018. Petitioner has completed over 182 hours during this time frame. In addition, there is adult and pediatric first aid CPR certification. There's also petitioner's wedding website business and Yelp reviews, and then there's a total of 8 letters of support. Pre-marked as Exhibit B is the license certification. Exhibit C is the notice of hearing and related correspondence. Exhibit D is the 2007 board decision. I'll now provide a brief summary of the petitioner's license history with the board. Petitioner's license number is 190037. The license was first issued on December 9th, 1999. On December 26, 2006, the board filed accusation number VN 2003-868 against petitioner, alleging that petitioner committed the following acts. Petitioner falsified, made grossly incorrect, grossly inconsistent, or unintelligible entries in medical records. Petitioner failed to report to the board the commission of prohibited acts and assisted in such acts by following the instructions of his supervisors or others to sign false medical records. Petitioner failed to document patient and/or client care in accordance with the standards of the profession and failed to adhere to the standards of the profession and ethical and behavioral standards of the professional practice, in that petitioner failed to properly document patient SA's medical records and failed to report unprofessional conduct to the board. On August 22, 2007, the board issued a decision in order adopting the proposed decision in case number VN 2003-868, effective September 21, 2007, in which respondent's vocational nurse license was revoked. On June 29, 2008, petitioner filed a petition for reinstatement. Petitioner is now requesting that the board reinstate his license. At this time, I'd like to admit exhibits A through D into evidence.
Okay, any objections, Mr. Cawley?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, so exhibits A through D will be admitted.
And because the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statements, but would reserve the right to question the petitioner.
All right, thank you, Ms. Doherty. So, Mr. Cawley, would you like to perform a direct examination of your client or just have your client speak freely?
If I may address the board just briefly and then allow my client to address the board?
You bet.
That would be okay. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Garcia comes before the board today to seek reinstatement of his license, which was revoked in September of 2007 due to a grave mistake he made as a young and inexperienced nurse in 2003, which was over 15 years ago. Mr. Garcia readily acknowledges he was derelict in his duty as an LVN while employed at West Cove Home Health Agency as a home health coordinator in 2003, which ultimately led to the revocation of both his LVN and RN licenses. However, Mr. Garcia's actions since 2003 are promising. It should be noted that since 2003, when the event occurred that resulted in the loss of his license in 2007, Mr. Garcia continued to work as an LVN without any further incident. He also worked as an RN from 2004 to 2008 without any other issues. Moreover, since the revocation of his license in 2007, he's engaged in numerous activities to turn his life around, both personally and professionally. As set forth in his petition for reinstatement, which you have before you today, it is evident that Mr. Garcia has taken several steps towards turning his life around and rehabilitating. He's had no further violations of the law in 11 years. He's He has built and managed a successful photography business. He is engaged in continuing education and taken steps in recent years to regain his competence and knowledge in order to perform the duties of an LVN with reasonable skill and safety. At this time, we would now like for Petitioner to address the board.
All right, thank you. Mr. Garcia.
Good morning again to you, Your Honor, and to the board. I am here before you today with the hope that you can realize that I am different and a better person. A person who is capable of safely and competently returning to work as a LVN. I acknowledge that my actions in 2003 were wrong. Particularly, I should have never have submitted chart records that were not completely accurate. I failed to report my employer to the board for instructing me to falsify medical records. And finally, I betrayed my patient as well as my profession by my failure to maintain the utmost ethical and professional standards which are required for all LVNs. I realize, understand, and regret my mistakes. I accept full responsibility. I'm very sorry for what has happened. Losing my license has been the most difficult thing that have ever happened to me. It gave me a clear picture to never take anything for granted. I have had much time to reflect on my actions over the last 11 years. Also, during this time, I have actively engaged in self-help to deal with my regret and sought to do better as a father, as a husband, and as a person. My wife, which is here, is a nurse and supported me and attempted to keep me positive all these years. After losing both my LVN and RN licenses, I dedicated my life to taking care of my wife, 2 young sons, and my ailing father. My father suffered from lung cancer and end-stage kidney disease for over 2 years. I was solely responsible for bringing him to dialysis 3 times a week. I continued to support him and remained by his side day by day, even after during hospice, until he later died due to kidney and lung cancer. I also found other ways to support my family, such as event photography on the weekends. It gave me a chance to restore my confidence in providing services to others. All these things helped me improve personally and allowed me to demonstrate responsibility. I stand before you today a different man than the 23-year-old LVN who committed these transgressions in 2003, over 15 years ago, as a new nurse. Please forgive me for the mistakes I have made. I am different now. I have matured. I stand here today confident that I can be a nurse again. I have waited patiently for the right time, hoping to be given a second chance and an opportunity to demonstrate to society, the board, and my family my sincere commitment to working proficiently, honestly, and diligently as a nurse. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. So at this time, I'm going to ask each of the board members if any of them has any questions for you, starting with my left. Dr. Mountain?
Not at this time.
Board Member Sellers?
No, not at this time, thank you.
Board Member Deerking?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Garcia, you indicated you engaged in self-help to deal with your regret.
Yes, sir.
What steps have you taken? How have you engaged in self-help? What self-help modalities have you engaged in?
After I lost my license, I depended on my wife to support me in every aspect, especially mentally, because when I lost everything, I was really not happy. I was disappointed in myself, allowing this to happen. And after, without her, she's seated here without her coaching me and just focusing on moving forward. And at the same time, we had children. I took it step by step, daily, and then just staying positive, just being a husband and a father.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
rather than relying on your wife, did you have any therapy or treatment?
No therapy, sir.
All right, going back to the incident that gave rise to the revocation, you admitted to evaluators that you saw the patient on one occasion. You told the evaluators that the reason that you did not continue to visit the patient was that he had too many patients, and I'm reading here from the decision at page 820 in the packet, paragraph 7. So the reason you did not continue to visit the patient was that you had too many patients and there was a communication issue because the patient was Spanish speaking. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
What was your motivation, however?
Motivation to
not continue to see the client, because what I'm reading from this is there's a patient who's Spanish speaking and you disregard him for that reason. So my question is twofold. What was your motivation? What was your actual rationale? Was that correct, though? You didn't continue to see the patient because he was Spanish speaking?
The patient had family members that I was able to speak on the phone. Apparently, there was a time that I would like to visit them again. During this time, I was looking for somebody in the facility, for a nurse that can be able to speak Spanish, and assign that nurse to them. However, with the family, I'm unable to schedule an actual visit because the patient was not in the house. So we were unable to schedule anything after the first visit. So during this time, also there was a lot of confusion in the facility. There was a lot of confusion, and I soon realized that I had no nurses that I can depend on, that I can send.
Okay, well, after hearing your explanation just now and my preparation in studying the documents, I find that even more troubling. In a multicultural, pluralistic, multilingual society, there is some reason that you have in your own mind where you would abandon a patient.
I made this mistake that I'm unable to get a nurse. That's why I took it upon myself to do what I could. And at this time, I was not totally trained. I didn't know how to proceed. So my thinking at this time is I will just do all I can to help this patient, even just through the phone. That's all I could remember, sir, as far as trying to remember this patient.
Okay. If you had too many patients, was there a monetary motive here then? Submitting these documents?
I was just paid by my employer by my per hour rate.
For visits that you claim you visited this patient?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
You got paid for visiting this patient when you actually had not visited the patient.
I don't remember if I was paid for this visit, sir, or if whether I did not visit. I don't remember if I was paid, sir. Yeah.
I have nothing else. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next, Board Member M. Manzola.
Hi, good morning. I think I'm a Spanish speaker, and my parents are Spanish speakers, and I have seen nurses communicate with my parents while they've been hospitalized, even though they did not speak Spanish. And the communication, have you done anything to facilitate your communication with multicultural patients? Because I see that you've taken CEUs, but there's ways to communicate, and there's ways to, I just want to know, what have you done to correct this?
Recently, I did not take any classes or courses for improving my communication in a different language to patients. However, I learned from my mistake here. That's all I can tell you for now.
I encourage you to take CEUs where you can identify, learn how to communicate with individuals from different cultures and different languages. I'm not specifically saying to go and learn a new language, but just ways of communicating and get support from the healthcare systems. Because it is important for you to identify how to communicate with your patients. Our state of California is increasingly diverse, and we want to ensure that the workforce of nurses can work with the diverse community of California. And so it's imperative for you to feel comfortable, for you to utilize other modalities to communicate with individuals that speak predominantly other languages. The second thing is, you said that you're asking for a second chance. And I want you to tell me a little bit more about that, because a patient died, and heart disease is a very serious condition. And I suffer from heart disease, my mother suffers from heart disease, and I, on a personal level, like, I understand how much care it's necessary, and I'm not a nurse. And I want to hear from you, why do you deserve a second chance?
Ms. Amizola, yes, I believe in myself that I can still become a nurse. My wife believe in me as well, because she's seen me besides my family and also our friends. Even when, for example, when my children are sick, I told my wife I will take care of them. Especially when my father was that 2 years that I was able to at least before he died, I was able to assist him, clean him. I believe that's one of the most peaceful time in my life, because I felt like I was really a nurse again. I know he was in pain, and that 2 years was my turning point. That I know that I can still do this, and I know I'm capable of, now that I'm improved, and that the people around me believe in me. So that's why I became very strong this last 4 years. I'm dedicated myself focus to get my licenses back, because I know I can come back to the community, that I'm, besides that I'm a better person, that I can help the sick again, that in whatever way or form. And it's important to me, my licenses.
If you were given your license again, how will you deal with patients that are in critical care?
Patients that are in critical care, besides that, I follow the orders that they're, the kind of care that they're supposed to get. Continue to be compassionate to them, comfort, communicate with the family, and and just make sure that I can help in everything that in my power, given to me as a nurse. That's the best I can that I can say for a critical patient.
And if you don't speak the same language as the patient?
I will I will ask for a team member in my hospital or in any care facility that's qualified, that's proficient in speaking the same language of my patient.
That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bass DeMartinez.
Thank you. I do have some questions. Good morning.
Good morning.
You mentioned that you want us to forgive you. As I listened to some of your responses earlier, have you forgiven yourself?
These past many years, of course, I'm still disappointed in myself in some ways, but I channeled that. Continued to be positive in a way that I know that once I return to be practicing as a nurse, that I can be able to truly demonstrate what I'm capable. Just like when I was younger, that from my coworkers that have witnessed me working with them, I believe that I'm truly much better. Mentally I'm stronger. These mistakes again that I made, it's a constant reminder to me that I should not, commit those kind of wrongdoing, and just for me to do what is right.
Okay. There is something else you mentioned as I was listening to your response, and I just need a little more clarification.
Yes.
When asked about how you would handle or what exactly happened in this circumstance, you said something about you could not find another nurse to assign. It led me to wonder who was in charge. If you're looking for someone to assign, are you telling us you were responsible for the assignments of nurses to patients?
Yes, my job description was the health coordinator in West Cove, and I was given a list of nurses in the office, and apparently when I was looking for somebody, nobody was responding back to me. But the particular nurse that was assigned before for this particular patient was, I believe, pregnant and not available. So that's all I could remember in regards to what has happened to this patient. And
So if I'm following you, you're in charge of assignments for the company, the entity for which you're working,
yes,
and the client did not have an assigned nurse.
yes.
So you became that nurse for the short time?
The people in the office asked me to be the nurse temporarily.
So that would mean whatever needs to be done would be done for a patient, given you were the assigned nurse?
At that time, yes. At that time, yes.
Okay. There were some other appointments that, according to doctor's orders and according to the record, that should have been met. So there were times when the patient, if we're understanding correctly, did not get all of the care that should have been delivered. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as the person making the assignments, were you looking, what were you doing at that time to ensure there would be someone to care for the client of the company?
Yes, this was part of my frustration because during this time I was being asked to do other things in the office.
I'm
Yes.
confused. What were the other things?
As far as I could remember, there was a little garage in the back of the facility where they had boxes and boxes of papers, or other charts, and just very briefly, my boss was asking me to gather all of these because the inspectors were asking for them, and I could remember making all kinds of corrections and organizations of charts, and that was pretty much it. They wanted me to stay in the office because of all this other work that they asked me to do. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Mendoza?
Yes, thank you. Since it's been a long period of time, if the board were to grant the license again, you would have to take the exam. The other question would be, are you willing to do the exam? And have you taken any courses or CEU credits on, other than the ones that you've given on ethics?
The first question, yes, I would take the exam again. And I haven't taken any other courses. I'm sorry, the last question was...
Any other courses besides the ones you have here?
No more recently.
Okay, none on ethics?
No longer in ethics. No.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Carpenter?
Yes, good morning. Are you also attempting to regain your RN license?
My focus right now is my LVN, and then I would also like to get my RN.
I think most of my questions have been answered already. Thank you.
Board Member Turner?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. It appears from reading the record that the patient had doctor's orders that she was to be seen by a nurse every day? Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
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 And she had, was it high blood pressure or some condition that required daily testing?
I don't remember specifics, but yes, that patient had blood pressure and heart.
All right, and I also read a note in there that there was some sort of pay dispute,
Sorry,
that there was a pay dispute.
pain dispute?
Yes, something
Pain.
about not receiving pay for a normal visit, and based on that, you decided that you were not going to see the patient. Did you ever decide not to see the patient on a daily basis because of the pay issue?
The pay issue. I don't remember. I don't specifically remember, and as far as the billing part, Ms. Turner, all I could tell you is that, right, like what I told Ms. Martinez, is that in the chaotic situation in the office is the only thing that I can tell you. Why I couldn't visit back this patient, and at the same time, I told my employer that the patient actually preferred a Spanish-speaking nurse, but that's all I can tell you as far as the payment. I don't remember anything.
Okay. Well, it was your responsibility to coordinate nurses.
Yes.
All right, so if for whatever reason you were not able to be there, what efforts did you take to find a replacement to make sure that the doctor's orders were complied with to see the patient on a daily basis?
Ms. Turner, yes, I apologize. I didn't really know what I was doing, partly after communicating with other nurses. I really don't know how else to proceed. It was part of my frustration. Many times my boss was not always in the office. The people in the office were not all of them were nurses. Again, Ms. Turner, I'm sorry. I don't know how to correct my mistake there. That's all I can tell you.
You believe that you've been rehabilitated and
Yes.
that you're a different person now. So as you sit here today, is there anything, what would you do differently? Since you're saying you're rehabilitated,
Yes.
you're back there in the same circumstance, what would you do differently?
What I would do differently is the moment I find anything that is not right, I would inform the board, or I would report. See, I never had any experience in this kind of situation. I didn't know what I was getting into. In my short time in this facility, I felt that I was going to be trained and hoping that I can be a home health nurse in a good capacity, but again, I failed to do what's right. And going back, that's what I would do. The moment I find something that is that can hurt my patient or the patient of the doctor, I have to let the right authorities know, so that the patient can have the best care possible. And I know I'm capable of doing that now.
And you realize how completely dependent these patients are in some cases, and their life depends upon your attention and your compassion to them.
Yes.
I don't have any more questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Doherty, any questions for petitioner?
I do have a few. When was the last time you practiced as a vocational nurse?
At West Cove Home Health.
You know about what year?
What year? 2000. 2003, around that time. At this time, I was practicing. I was reviewing for the RN board too, so that's why I believe there was a time period that I focused on reviewing.
If the board grants your license with the probationary period, what assurances today can you provide to the board that the situation that ended you up in this disciplinary matter won't occur again?
I don't want this mistake to happen again, and I want to be that nurse that I can show everybody that I'm responsible, that my standards now is much higher than when I made these mistakes. I also promise to focus on being a nurse. I believe part of my problem here was that I put being an employee. I put my mind as an employee first. Now, all these years, I want to be focused as being a nurse. If I continue to keep that in mind, I know I will be successful being a nurse again, because my patients will have better outcomes.
You provided some letters of reference with your petition. Are the authors of those letters aware of the board's discipline and your actions you engaged in resulting in that discipline?
Yes.
Are you currently involved in any community groups like volunteer work, church?
I regularly attend church, and for the school, I as needed, I help at the school.
And you talked a lot about today how you found yourself in a chaotic situation, sort of a stressful situation. Do you now have a support group or anyone that you can turn to if you find yourself in this type of situation again?
My wife and my mom, which are nurses.
At this time, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Mr. Cawley?
Your Honor, may I redirect just very briefly?
You bet.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garcia, did you feel that you had sufficient training in home health at West Cove?
No.
Okay. Did you feel that you had adequate support from other staff at West Cove?
No.
Would you ever work in a employment situation like West Cove again?
No.
If the board were to reinstate your license, what type of setting would you hope to work in?
I would like to return to a med-surg unit in a hospital, primarily cancer patients.
And is part of your desire to work in a hospital setting due to the resources they're providing in terms of training?
Yes.
And are you willing to complete any additional coursework or training that the board may require if you're reinstated?
Yes.
No further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Cawley. Are there any additional documents other than what's in the petition packet?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else from the board, nothing else from Ms. Doherty, and nothing else from Mr. Cawley, this concludes the petition in this matter. So the record is closed, the matter is submitted, and we'll proceed on to the next petition.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
The next petitioner is April Jackson. I believe. Yes. Yeah. We can mail it to them. Okay. Just let me know when you're ready. All set?
No.
All right, good morning to you, Ms. Jackson.
Good morning.
Okay, we are on the record in the matter of the petition of April Jackson. This is OAH number 20190411111. Ms. Jackson, I'm going to put you under oath. If you could kindly raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
Good morning, Your Honor and board members. My name is Caitlin Doherty, Deputy Attorney General. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Business and Profession Code Section 2878.7 and Government Codes Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the board in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the board has adequate information from which to make a decision.
Thank you. And Ms. Jackson, would you like to make an opening statement?
I do not.
Okay. In that case, again, the board has the benefit of receiving and reviewing your packet, so you don't really have to repeat anything that's already in the packet. So we'll go down the line here.
Your Judge, can I admit the exhibits and do a brief background?
Thank you.
First, I would like to mark for identification and offer into evidence our exhibit binder. The board members and the petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of this exhibit. What's been pre-marked as Exhibit A is the petition for reinstatement with accompanying documents. The accompanying documents in Exhibit A generally consist of the petition for reinstatement, statement from petitioner dated August 29, 2018, a letter from CPS Examination Services, a notice of publication, a notice of completion for the High Road Program, an IRS letter, and declarations in support. Exhibit B is the license certification. Exhibit C is the notice of hearing and related correspondence, and Exhibit D is the 2012 board discipline. I'd now like to ask if these exhibits could be admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Ms. Jackson, do you object to that, or would you wish that those documents be admitted?
I wish
Okay.
that they be admitted, yes.
Okay, very good. All of the documents are admitted.
I'll now provide a brief summary of petitioner's license history with the board. Petitioner's license number is VN187540. The license was first issued on March 8, 1999. On April 26, 2012, the board filed accusation number VN 2009-1081 against petitioner, alleging that petitioner committed the following criminal conduct. In November 8th, 2010, Petitioner was convicted of 1 misdemeanor count of violating Vehicle Code Section 12500, Subdivision A, driving with a suspended license. On February 10th, 2010, Petitioner was convicted of 1 misdemeanor count of driving a vehicle while having 0.08 or more by weight of alcohol in blood. On June 15, 2006, Petitioner was convicted of 1 misdemeanor count of reckless driving. Petitioner used alcohol in a manner dangerous to herself or others. On August 9, 2012, the board issued a decision and order adopting the default decision in case number VN 2009-1081, effective September 8, 2012, in which respondent's vocational nurse license was revoked. On August 30th, 2018, Petitioner filed a petition for reinstatement. Petitioner is now requesting that the board reinstate her license.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. At this time, Ms. Jackson, would you like to say something?
I'm not quite sure how the proceedings go.
And that's okay. I can ask the board members if they have questions of you.
Sure.
Okay. Dr. Mountain?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you actively participating in something at this time as an ongoing method of being able to not drink and drive?
Oh, absolutely. The last offense was in 2009. I haven't had any incidences, mainly because of the things that have reverberated in my life, how my life has completely kind of gone upside down because of the loss of my driver's license and nursing license. So I completed the program, as you see in the packet, the 18-month program. I have gone to counseling, and I have gone nowhere near a vehicle if I've had any type of alcoholic substance.
I guess I was asking about ongoing support that's current in your life right now besides just avoiding driving while drinking. Are you doing anything else actively to make sure that you don't ever get in the car again and have this incident?
Well, to be honest, since it's been so long, I've actively, since 2009, made sure that I've never gotten behind the wheel. I've never put myself in that position. It's been 10 years. I haven't had, any type of situation like that. So,
thank you.
Board member Sellers?
Yeah, I guess more specifically, do you participate in Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous? Anything like that?
in the beginning stages, I did attend AA meetings, which were very insightful, and actually, but to your question, currently I am not attending any AA meetings, but I did for a few years in the beginning when the entire situation happened.
So so who would you turn to for support if you suddenly found yourself compelled to drink? Do you consider yourself an alcoholic?
I am not, no. I made a bad decision to get behind the wheel of a car after a night of revelry, but I've never been a problem drinker.
No further questions.
Thank you. Board member Deerking?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Jackson.
Good morning.
Do you have a sobriety date then?
A sobriety date?
Yeah, when you last consumed alcohol?
That's a good question. Can I be really honest?
Well, that's what
Yes.
we would expect.
I don't. I am not an alcoholic. Like I said, I made a bad decision to get behind the wheel of a car. I'm not an alcoholic. So on occasion, I'll have a drink. But I don't drink daily, I don't drink excessively, and I definitely don't get behind the wheel of a car. If that makes any sense, I don't know.
So you continue to have alcohol on some occasion or another?
On some occasions. But I do not have a problem with alcohol.
Okay, so we should explore that a little more.
Okay.
You said you made a bad decision, but in fact, it was not just one, but 2 DUIs that you
I do
had.
understand that, yes.
And most recently, the blood alcohol level was rather high, wasn't it? Do you recall what the level was in 2010?
It was 2009, I don't recall.
Yeah, our records show, yeah, the conviction date was 2010, November 8th. Yeah, it was 0.15.
November 8th of,
2010, that was the conviction date?
oh, but the incident happened in 2009. It happened in September of 2009.
Right, and the underlying incident showed a blood alcohol level of 0.15, right?
I don't recall, but if that's what's in your records.
And then the prior alcohol-involved conviction was in 26?
Yes.
So I guess it would be moot to ask, what the trigger points are for drinking, since you continue to drink.
Well, I've definitely curtailed my activity as far as drinking, especially in excess. That was what brought me to this point, was drinking in excess and deciding to get behind the wheel of a car, knowing how dangerous it was, but just not thinking, just not in my right faculties. But I do take accountability for my actions. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for, my poor decision-making during that time in 2009. But I'm very responsible in that matter. I have, I take public transportation. I have people drive me. If that were an instance for me to, if I consumed any alcohol, I just wouldn't get behind the wheel of a car. And I think I've proven that since it's been over 10 years.
Okay, so just going back to the incident of the arrest in 2009, what were the events that led up to that? You indicated you had been, I think you said revelry?
I worked a full day, and then I went out with coworkers after work and had drinks, and that's what led to that.
And other than the period that was court-ordered for counseling or therapy, you no longer have any kind of therapeutic intervention?
I did actually go back to therapy at the beginning of the year, this year, but I haven't been in over a month, but I was regularly seeing a therapist weekly.
Okay, do you know what kind of therapist? Like MFT or MSW, psychologist, psychiatrist?
She wasn't a psychologist. She was a therapist. I can get the information, but she wasn't a psychologist. It was just I went to a facility down in Los Angeles where they offer therapy based on a sliding scale. So they'll use, I believe she was an MFT student or intern.
Okay, well, my point is you recognized you had some kind of issue, whatever it is, and you sought help.
I did, yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Since 2010, what have you done to improve your knowledge, skills, and abilities, really your worldview, so that similar conduct won't be repeated.
As far as continuing education credits?
Well, drinking and driving is what I'm talking about.
Oh. Well, I've done a lot of self-help type of, activities. I've taken up meditating. I regularly attend the Agape Spiritual Center down in Los Angeles. And I built a support system within these communities who support me whenever I need them to, if I'm having a moment where I'm just not at my best.
And when did you practice last? When did you practice last as a nurse?
Oh, 2012.
And have you done anything to maintain a current level or body of knowledge?
I have, my specific area of expertise was plastic surgery, so since I wasn't able to practice as a nurse, I started working as a coordinator, a surgical consultant in various offices. I managed a few offices. So I've always been up to date as far as that specialty.
Okay, I have nothing else. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Board Member Amazola.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming today. Why have you waited so long to now seek your license?
It was just a series of events that happened to me. Once that happened, it was almost like a domino effect. Just everything started to go wrong, and I'm sure you want specifics. Once I lost my ability to practice as a nurse, I lost my income, financial stability. I lost my home. I lost my storage. Everything just went into a tailspin. My son became an addict. It's just everything just started to fall apart, and I went into a complete mental collapse. I don't know if you've ever been through that or known anyone that's been through that, but when everything goes wrong at one time, I just couldn't pull myself back together. I just went into a complete mental collapse and just became completely dependent upon my family until I started to slowly pull myself back together with the types of self-help things that I told Mr. Dierking about.
It's a question of clarification. So this year you're in therapy, but you haven't seen your therapist for the last month.
Correct.
And in your therapy, are you working on abusing alcohol, abusing drugs, or what are you?
So we are covering any aspect that has led to my severe anxiety and depression. So, of course, we address alcohol, we address familial, conflicts, just my history alone of having anxiety and depression, my whole life. We just touch upon any and every aspect that could actually contribute to, the state of, my state of anxiety and depression.
Would your therapist, if the board was to ask, would your therapist approve you working in stressful situations where, you may need to take care of someone's life and
Well, I just want to be clear. in my nursing career, I've never had any issues with patient care. I've never put my patients in danger. I've never been incompetent when it comes to the care. It was just my personal life outside of the workplace that got me into trouble. But I've always been a very thorough, competent nurse. I've never had any issues with being a nurse with any employers that have ever employed me, or any nurses or any patients that I have ever taken care of. I've always been a good nurse. Being in a high stress situation, I can handle perfectly. It was just outside of that, I made a bad decision, but I've worked in many high stress situations outside of working in plastic surgery. I used to work for the registry, so I was always working in ERs, ICUs. Before they limited our scope of practice a few years back, I was always in very stressful situations, and I handle it perfectly fine.
Are you ready to go back into the workforce?
I've been ready forever. Being a nurse has been my identity. And once I lost that, I felt like I lost myself. And I tried to do so many other things to try to replace that, or to try to replica the feelings that I received from being a nurse, but nothing could replicate that. I was born to be a nurse. This was always been my passion. So for me to lose the ability to practice as a nurse, it was just really devastating.
Do you have the means to go back to school and practice for the test and to take CEU units?
Yes, I do.
Do you have the support at home?
Yes, I do.
Who?
I have an amazing family. I live with my sister now. I have my sister. I have my mother, who is here. I have a very patient and compassionate father. I have brothers and sisters. We are a very close-knit family, so they've always been a major form of support for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Bess DeMartinez.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to need you to lead me through some things because I'm starting to become confused.
Okay.
You have your packet in front of you of the materials
Yes.
on page A6. About midway, it asks if you have a sobriety date. And unless I misunderstood, I think you didn't have one, but I see one here.
Correct.
You want to help me with that?
Sure. The only thing I can think of, I did this a while back. The only thing I can think of is I probably corresponded that date with my court dates, or my compliance with the court as far as like not drinking and driving.
Okay. And then right after it, there's a question, have you abstained from the use of alcohol and or drugs since your date of sobriety? And you just told us something about you drink socially, or did I hear that correctly?
I did say that, yes.
So which is which?
I don't know where I marked that. The latter, I do partake once in a while.
If I'm understanding correctly, you see your professional life as one part. It's compartmentalized. You can say it's on one side of the wall. And if it's a house, there's only two parts. One is your work, and then there's the personal part of you. Did I understand that right? In other words, what happens personally isn't something, if we're hearing you right, is not something that affects your work.
And you know what? I'm sure that's the root of the problem. I've always separated the two, and it's because I've separated the two that I'm here now. I shouldn't. I should have always conducted my personal life with the knowledge that it could affect my personal life if I make a bad decision.
And now, how do you see that?
Well, now I don't take it for granted. I do understand that, you know, the two are one. I mean, I've had to come to that understanding because I'm suffering the consequences of it.
We understand, just from what you said, that your biggest support is family.
Yes.
And how do you know when you need that support? What happens that tells you, I need the support of my mom, or I need to go talk with them so I can stay strong?
Well, outside of anything that I normally do, if meditating doesn't work, I also practice something called EFT, emotional freedom tapping. If nothing I do, emotional freedom tapping.
Yes. What does that mean to you?
To me, it actually does work. You tap on meridian points while you recite affirmations, and it actually does help to calm me down tremendously. Like I said, I use that and couple it with meditation. If none of those things work, then of course I lean on, you know, my support system.
One last thing. If we're hearing you correctly, if you have your license reinstated, your choice of work would be in cosmetic surgery?
Correct. That's what I've specialized in since 2003.
Thank you.
President Mendoza.
Thank you. No questions at this time.
Board Member Carpenter.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
You had indicated that you've seen a therapist. The therapist that you saw most recently, was that in regard to the situation with your son? Or was that sometime in the past? I don't see any dates on that.
More recently, it is for everything. It has to do with this situation, my son's addiction, me getting stuck and stagnant when, you know, I'm hit with an obstacle and try to work through that. Just mainly those.
Okay, and you had indicated that you have anxiety and depression issues. Are you on medications for those?
I am not on medication. Like I mentioned, I use natural remedies. So as well as meditation and EFT, I also do a lot of exercising to help raise my endorphins, to kind of help bring me through any episode, if I might have, you know, an episode of anxiety.
Okay, my other questions have already been answered, so thank you.
Okay.
Board Member Turner.
Yes, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's my understanding from reading this that your license was revoked because of the accusation, but as well as because you failed to respond to the board's notice that your license was subject to discipline.
Correct.
And are you saying you didn't receive the notice because your home was facing foreclosure and you had to move, or what happened?
So when the board had actually sent over the request for information, they actually sent it to the home that I lost in foreclosure, and it wasn't forwarded to my new address. So I had no clue what was going on until after the fact, until after the decision was made.
Okay, so I thought you lost your home through foreclosure after you had to stop working because you lost your license? Or
that was the first time I lost my home. I lost my apartment once everything was said and done. After I moved out of my home and I moved into an apartment, and once I lost the ability to work as a nurse, I lost my apartment.
All right, and so ultimately, you did finally receive a notice at some point that your license had been revoked?
I did not. I actually found that out by going online. I went to renew my license, and it stated that it was revoked. So I called, and it took about a month or two before I received a call back, and that's when I found out why my license had been revoked.
And so that was a long time, 2012, and you're just now taking action to do something about it. What, you made the call and you found out about it, and so why not at that point take some sort of action regarding the default decision?
So from my understanding, I wasn't able to ask for a petition for a reinstatement until 2015. And during those times, I actually just started working in a different capacity in different medical offices and different plastic surgery offices. So I kind of like really focused on, managing, coordinating, consulting, and after seeing other nurses working around me, I, finally decided, this is what I do. This is what I rather do. I would rather be on the nursing end because I know I'm good at it, and I know how knowledgeable I am about, my specialty, and I have a passion for it. So that's why I decided to pursue it.
Your convictions were in 2006 and 2010. Did you complete the probation related to that?
Yes, I
those
did.
convictions? And what are the statuses of those convictions? Have you taken any action to remove them from your record?
I have not. I didn't know I had that option.
Okay.
Honestly.
All right, I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
I have a few. If you can turn to page A9 of your petition. Did you understand when you signed this petition that you were signing this under penalty and perjury? And that everything in this petition was to be accurate and truthful?
Yes.
If you can turn to page A11, I believe that is the statement that you wrote on your behalf. You state in there that you isolated yourself from friends because you did not want to arouse curiosity and also out of shame, just pure shame. Do you have support groups or support systems outside of your family in case you are stressed instead of having to resort to criminal actions that had occurred previously?
I do now. The friends that I've made several friends, within the communities that I've been participating in going to the Agape Center or going to different meditation centers. I've found a support group there.
And then have you completed any continuing education outside of the cosmetic industry?
I have not, no.
Do you currently today have any references from any current employers?
I have character references here, yes.
Are they different than the ones that are in the petition packet?
They are.
Do you want the board to take those into consideration today?
Yes.
So, additional documents, do you have those with you, and do you have copies for everybody?
I have, I'm not fully prepared, as you can see, but I do have letters. I can make more copies.
Okay, well, why don't you show them to Ms. Doherty? She might ask you some questions about those letters.
So are you?
I'm sorry, Ms. Doherty. Perhaps you can identify those letters for the record, just when they're dated and who they're from.
First one is a letter as well.
The first letter I have is from Terry Matheson, Mathieson. She's an RN and CEO, and it's dated May 15th, 2019. The second letter is from James Anthony Brown, and it is dated May 2nd, 2019. The third letter is from Pastor Stephen Dyson, and it is dated May 15th, 2019. The fourth letter is from Brian Bolden, VP of Business Affairs at Silver Screen Pictures, and it is dated May 9th, 2019. The next letter is from Shailene Kuhn, Choon, and it's dated May 15th, 2019. The next letter is from Alfreda Sailor, Alfreta Sailor, dated May 15th, 2019. The next letter is from Ashley Saylor, dated May 15th, 2019, and I want to make a note that it is not signed. And the last letter I have is from Deborah Bullock, DeborahBullock, and it's dated May 15th, 2019.
Okay, let me ask Madam President if the petitioner can get some extra time to make copies and provide them to the board. How would you like to proceed with the additional documentation?
I know that in the past, they've allowed the petitioner to make copies and bring them back, but that would be up to your discretion.
Okay, so what we'll do is I'll give you some additional time to go out and make copies for all of the board members, and then board members will be here all day, so if you can kindly come back and provide those.
Yes.
Judge, I was just informed that they can run upstairs right now and make copies and bring them down, so if we want to proceed or...
Terrific. Okay, so we'll get those copies made. Do you want the opportunity to wait for those copies and ask questions?
I do have a few questions involving those copies, so if you want me to wait to finish my questioning, I can.
Okay, so if you have other questions while we're waiting for those copies, please proceed.
Have a couple. What assurances today can you provide the board that they won't find you back if your license is granted or is reinstated on a probationary period? What assurances can you provide the board that you won't end up back in front of them for the same situation?
Well, I definitely don't take my privilege to work as a nurse for granted, and that's probably was an underlying issue before. I just never took it into consideration what my personal poor decisions, what effect they could have on my license, and I've learned from that the hardest way possible. And if I may address the board members, I don't know if this is an appropriate time. I hope I don't come across insincere. I know I'm not as prepared as the others petitioners. I'm just really nervous, but I'm really passionate about nursing, and I'm telling you the truth. This is from my heart. This is something I got my license in 99, hit the ground running, and I worked from that moment until I lost my ability to work. And as I stated before, it was a real blow, and it was a real loss of identity to lose my ability to practice. And I just want to get back into it because I love it so much. I really do love being a nurse. It's probably the only real thing that I'm really good at, is caring for others. And I just want the ability to be able to do it again because I miss it so much.
And then are you involved in your community in any way, whether it's through community service, through your church, or so forth?
I do. There are, I volunteer with a couple, I volunteer with the Midnight Mission in downtown Los Angeles during lunchtime when I can. I also volunteer with the Soup Kitchen St. Joseph's for their morning breakfast, and also anything else that they may have me do. I also will volunteer with the church, with whatever they need.
So I know today you stated that you do not believe that you have an alcohol problem, but I do see it from your petition packet. You did attend Alcoholics Anonymous at one point in time, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever have a sponsor?
No.
And did you ever start to work the steps of AA?
During the process, I did. Initially, yes.
Can you tell me what step you worked up till?
It's been so long.
That's fine.
I don't remember.
I currently have no further questions until I can review letters.
Okay, it sounds like it's going to take a few minutes for that. So we can I can ask you, Ms. Jackson, if you have something to say additionally in closing while we're waiting for the copies to be made.
Could we take a break?
We can certainly do that too.
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Since we're still on the record, may I address the petitioner? I just have
Sure.
a follow-up comment and question. Ms. Jackson, if this board decides to reinstate your license, there would almost certainly be a biological fluid testing requirement, which means you would have to abstain from all drugs and alcohol. Are you prepared to do that?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Let's get off the record and take a 10-minute recess.